I don't know how I got here. I don't know how my marriage became this lie I'm living every single day. The regret is eating me alive, and I feel like if I don't say this out loud, if I don't share this story, I might completely lose myself. Maybe telling you will help me find some peace, or at least help me figure out what to do next. My name is Zainab. I am, or was, a devoted Muslim woman, married to my husband Omar for 5 beautiful years. Our life in Karachi was everything I thought I wanted. We lived as part of a community where everyone knew everyone, where faith guided our steps, where I felt protected and whole. But 7 months ago, everything changed when Omar got a job opportunity in Florida. As a tech engineer, it was the chance of a lifetime, and we knew we had to take it, even though leaving everything familiar behind terrified us both. America. It's so different from what we knew. In Karachi, we lived as one big family with our neighbors. Here, everyone minds their own business, hidden behind closed doors and perfect lawns. The way people dress, the way they interact. American women walk around so freely, so confidently, in ways that would have been unthinkable back home. I'm not judging them, but it made me feel like a stranger in my own skin. The hardest part was watching Omar disappear into his new life. He was working 12, sometimes 14-hour days, trying to prove himself, trying to show his new company that hiring him was the right choice. I understood. I really did. But understanding didn't make the loneliness any easier. For the first time in my marriage, I felt invisible. That's when everything started to fall apart. I remember the day clearly. I needed help finding the nearest halal grocery store, and I remembered our neighbor Deborah had visited us when we first moved in, bringing us homemade cookies and a warm smile. I decided to ask her for directions. When I knocked on their door, it wasn't Deborah who answered. It was her husband, Joseph. He was breathing hard, sweat glistening on his chest, wearing nothing but gym shorts. I immediately covered my eyes, my face burning with embarrassment. But then he laughed, this easy, warm laugh that made something flutter in my stomach. "Come on, it's okay," he said, still chuckling. "At least I remembered to put on shorts, right?" I found myself laughing too, which shocked me. "I'm here to see Deborah. I need help with directions to—" "She's at work," he interrupted, looking directly into my eyes with this intensity that made my breath catch. "But I can help. What do you need?" As he started explaining the route, I couldn't hear a single word. All I could focus on was the way his shoulders moved when he talked, how his voice had this deep, comforting quality, how his presence seemed to fill the entire doorway. I was drowning in thoughts I had no business having. "Are you listening?" he asked, and I snapped back to reality. "Sorry, I was just thinking about something else," I stammered. "Would you like to come in for some coffee?" I should have said no. I should have run home to my empty house and prayed for forgiveness. Instead, I nodded. We talked for over an hour. He apologized for never coming over to introduce himself properly, said he wasn't much of a social person. He was amazed at how fluently I spoke English, and we talked about the challenges of adapting to a new country. There was something about the way he listened, really listened, that I hadn't experienced in months. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying our conversation, the way he looked at me, the genuine interest in his eyes. I felt so guilty for these thoughts that I spent hours in prayer, begging Allah for strength to overcome whatever temptation was growing in my heart. And for 2 weeks, my prayers seemed to be answered. I avoided that side of the neighborhood entirely. But fate, it seems, had other plans. I was carrying groceries from my car when some bags split open, spilling contents across my driveway. As I scrambled to collect everything, I heard his voice. "Let me help you. You shouldn't be doing this alone." Joseph gathered up my scattered groceries and followed me to my kitchen. Being alone with him in my home felt dangerous in a way I couldn't name. When he set the bags down, he turned to look at me, really look at me, and stepped closer until he was just inches away. "Do I make you uncomfortable, Zainab?" Yes, number. Of course not. You don't, I babbled, completely losing control of my words. Can I offer you something to drink? I asked, desperate to change the subject. Whiskey, he said with a grin. I laughed despite myself. We don't have that. Omar and I don't drink alcohol. Oh, right. How is your husband? How's he settling into his new job? We ended up talking for hours. He told me he worked from home, only going into his office a few times a month. I joked that I was a trophy wife who didn't need to work, which made him laugh. We talked about how different Florida was from our home countries, about the loneliness of starting over. Are you happy? He asked suddenly. Yes, I lied. Are you? I asked back. I'm fine, he lied, but I could hear the loneliness in his voice, the same ache I carried. Have you seen much of the area yet? Just the mosque, a museum, and the supermarket, I admitted. I'd love to show you around sometime. I knew I shouldn't have said yes, but something about the way he asked made refusing feel impossible. He took me to Bayfront Park. It was beautiful. The water, the skyline, the way the afternoon light made everything look like a painting. That's where he finally opened up, telling me how lonely he'd been for the past year. How his wife Deborah was always traveling for work. How their marriage had become more like a business partnership than a love story. I wanted to share my own pain, but I couldn't find the words. Instead, I did something that shocked us both. I hugged him. I pulled away immediately, my face burning. I didn't mean to do that. It's fine, he said gently. It's not a big deal. Well, it is for me, I said sharply. Please take me home. The drive back was silent until he asked, did I do something wrong? No, I said quietly. It's not you. It's me. What's wrong? Don't bother. I can't talk about it. When he dropped me off, he said, it was great spending time with you, Zainab. I looked him in the eye and said, I wish I could say the same. As soon as I got inside, I broke down in tears. I was falling for another woman's husband, and I felt powerless to stop it. When Omar came home that night, I threw myself into his arms. He noticed my mood and asked what was wrong. I just missed you so much, I said. You're never around anymore. He promised to make more time for me once he got settled at work. We made love that night, but it wasn't enough to quiet the desire that was already consuming me. A few days later, Omar told me he had to travel to Atlanta for a presentation with his team. Why do you look so sad? He asked, noticing my expression. I'm not sad. I'm happy for you. I'll miss you so much. He pulled me into a hug, wiping away a tear I didn't realize had fallen. I promise it'll be like I never left. He left the next morning, and the temptation I thought I'd been fighting became unbearable. My mind kept telling me that Deborah was traveling and Omar was gone. What was stopping us? I couldn't sleep for 2 nights. On the 3rd night, I found myself standing on Joseph's porch without even remembering the walk over. Hello, Zainab, he said, as if he'd been expecting me. Would you like to come in? There was something in his voice that made me want to kiss him right there. You look sad, Zainab. Is everything all right? Everything is not all right, I whispered. What's wrong? Is your husband okay? He's fine. He traveled yesterday. So what's the problem? You are the problem, I said, standing up and stepping closer to him. Ever since I saw you on that porch, sweaty and half-dressed, I haven't stopped thinking about you. I've been alone since we moved here, and as if that's not enough, you've been sent to torment me. He pulled me into his arms, whispering, I feel the same way about you. Zainab. There's something about you that... I pulled away, suddenly realizing how wrong this was. I'm sorry, I said, and ran home. I'd barely closed my door when I heard a knock. When I opened it, Joseph was there. Before I could say anything, he grabbed my waist and pulled me into a kiss that erased every rational thought from my mind. He took me to the bed I shared with my husband and made love to me in ways I'd never experienced. He worshipped every inch of my body like I was something precious, something sacred. Afterward, we lay in each other's arms, and I had the best sleep I'd had in months. But it was only that one night of peace. Every night since has been torture. Omar returned the next day with gifts. For my beautiful, perfect wife, he said, not knowing that I wasn't perfect anymore, not knowing what I had done. Joseph and I were intimate one more time when Omar was at work, but I told him it had to be the last time. He doesn't want to let go. He keeps trying to convince me that maybe we're meant for each other, but I know that's not true. I know I've destroyed 2 families with my selfishness. I'm sharing this story because I feel like trash. I'm disgusted with myself, and I'm praying that Allah will give me the strength to be whole again. But the question that's killing me is this: how do I tell my husband that I've been unfaithful? How do I look him in the eyes and break his heart? Please tell me what you would do. Would you tell him, breaking his heart but freeing yourself from this lie? Or would you live with it forever, breaking your own heart but protecting his? I'm drowning in this choice, and I don't know how much longer I can pretend to be the wife he thinks he married.